Josh Hart became eligible for a genuinely massive contract extension yesterday. And while everyone assumes he's simply going to follow Jalen Brunson's team-friendly example, there's a real, compelling argument for why that's actually not a fair expectation to place on him this time around. I've gone through everything about Hart's extension eligibility, the numbers involved, and the genuinely persuasive case for why he might not follow that same script. Every quote, every dollar figure. Let's break it all down right now. So before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because this is a genuinely nuanced financial storyline worth understanding in full. Let's start with the actual numbers on the table, because they're genuinely significant. Josh Hart officially became eligible to sign a contract extension with the Knicks worth up to 4 years and $131.2 million starting on August 10th. Rest assured, virtually nobody around the organization expects him to actually get that full amount. If recent extensions given to Dillon Brooks and Najee Marshall around the league are any real indication, though, keeping Hart is still going to cost this front office more than they're probably hoping for. Brooks's own contract specifically should catch New York's attention here too, since it runs all the way through his age 34 season and pays him more annually than what Hart's own 2027-28 team option is currently worth. Comparing Hart's expected market value against similar recent deals for players with comparable production gives New York a genuinely useful benchmark for exactly how difficult this specific negotiation could realistically become. It's worth remembering exactly what Hart has actually meant to this roster too, since it helps explain why this extension conversation carries so much weight. He's the glue of the title team, a genuine do-everything wing who averaged 12 points, 7.4 rebounds, 4.8 assists, and 1.1 steals a night on 50.8% shooting across 66 games last season. A real career year across nearly every meaningful category. He's a versatile contributor whose rebounding, playmaking, steals, and overall efficiency carry genuine appeal, even if his relatively low outside shooting volume caps his ceiling somewhat as a pure offensive weapon. That kind of complete, winning-focused production is exactly why the Knicks want to lock him down for the long term rather than simply letting his situation play out year to year. It's genuinely rare to find a player this size producing across so many different statistical categories simultaneously, which is exactly what makes him such a difficult piece to fairly value or ever fully replace. Now here's where the genuinely interesting counterargument comes in. According to Daily Knicks, nobody should actually expect Josh Hart to follow the same blueprint Jalen Brunson already established. And it's not because Hart wants out of New York either. He feels like a genuine Big Apple lifer at this point in his career. It's also not because he'd be acting selfishly by pushing for full value, since players should never be criticized for simply trying to optimize their own on-court earning potential after years of proven winning production. That's a genuinely important distinction to make, separating a player's legitimate right to seek fair market compensation from any suggestion of disloyalty or betrayal toward the organization or its broader culture of sacrifice. The real reasoning is considerably more nuanced than that, though. The Knicks shouldn't actually expect Hart to take another material pay cut, because he already accepted one once before. Hart is currently entering the third season of a 4-year, $80.9 million extension he originally signed back in 2023. Back then, Hart picked up his own $12.9 million player option specifically to help the Knicks use a full mid-level exception, allowing the organization to sign Dante DiVincenzo, his own former Villanova teammate, to a brand new 4-year deal in the process. That earlier sacrifice already helped shape this roster in a genuinely meaningful way, and it's exactly the kind of prior contribution that complicates any simple expectation that he'll just repeat that same generosity now that he's eligible for an even bigger extension. It's worth remembering that particular sacrifice came at a genuinely earlier, less financially secure stage of his own career too, meaning he's already demonstrated exactly the kind of team-first mentality this front office is now hoping he'll show once again. Knowing all of that context, expecting Hart to take another significant pay cut now that he's extension eligible again genuinely isn't fair on its face. There's also simply not that much room left to trim from his current pay structure anyway. Hart currently holds a $22.4 million team option for the 2027-28 season, which comes out to roughly 12.9% of the entire salary cap. Starting caliber players on title-contending rosters who aren't still on rookie-scale contracts typically don't make significantly less than that number anyway, meaning there's genuinely limited financial room for this front office to actually squeeze out of him even if he were fully willing to negotiate. It's the kind of mathematical reality that no amount of goodwill or championship sentiment can fully overcome, since Hart's baseline market value is already sitting close to what most comparable role players around the league are currently earning. There's also a genuinely important layer of team-wide context worth understanding here too. Pay cut talk has become genuinely common across this entire Knicks roster recently, especially given how much Brunson has already set that specific tone. Mikal Bridges signed for less than his own maximum last summer and could likely have commanded even more money on the open market this current offseason. Even Landry Shamet inked a genuinely below-market deal just this past July. Hart following that same pattern is a distinct possibility given everything else happening around him, but given his own prior sacrifice back in 2023, there's a genuinely reasonable case that he's already done his part, and that pushing for every dollar he can realistically get this time around wouldn't represent any kind of betrayal to this specific championship culture. Step back and look at the complete picture here, and Hart's extension situation represents a genuinely nuanced test case for exactly how far this front office's culture of sacrifice can realistically extend. Brunson set the tone. Bridges followed. Shamet followed too. But Hart already made his own version of that same sacrifice years earlier, and asking him to repeat that generosity now, right as he's finally eligible for the kind of significant, market-rate payday most veterans in his position would expect, is a genuinely different, more complicated ask than it's been framed as by some of the surrounding conversation. So here's where everything stands. Josh Hart became eligible for a 4-year extension worth up to $130.2 million this past Monday. And while the expectation remains that he'll likely take some kind of team-friendly discount similar to Brunson and Bridges, there's a genuinely persuasive argument that he's already paid that specific price once before, back in 2023 when he helped bring in Dante DiVincenzo. Whether Hart ultimately pushes for full value or continues this roster's broader pattern of sacrifice remains one of the more genuinely uncertain financial storylines hanging over this championship team's offseason. So tell me what you think. Do you believe Josh Hart deserves to push for closer to full market value on this extension, given his own prior sacrifice back in 2023? Or do you think he should still follow Brunson's team-friendly example to help keep this exact championship roster together? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you catch every update as it happens. I'll be back soon with more Knicks news.